The moment the headline dropped, fans froze. For years, Dylan Wang's private life had been sealed behind carefully chosen words, playful deflections, and a strict boundary between his work and his heart. He was the actor everyone thought they knew, but never fully understood. And now, with just a few sentences, everything people assumed was suddenly up for question. It didn't come from a dramatic press conference or a flashy social media announcement. Instead, it happened quietly, almost casually, during what was supposed to be a routine interview. Dylan was asked a familiar question, one he had answered countless times before, about love, rumors, and whether his heart was taken. Usually, he smiled it off. This time, he paused. That pause was what sent fans into a frenzy. For the first time, Dylan didn't dodge. He didn't laugh it away. He didn't redirect the conversation to work. Instead, he spoke calmly, honestly, and without theatrics. He acknowledged that he was seeing someone. Not a celebrity, not a co-star, not the name fans had been linking to him for years. Someone entirely unexpected. Within minutes, clips of the interview spread across platforms. Fans replayed his words again and again, analyzing his tone, his expression, the subtle softness in his voice. This wasn't a scripted reveal. It wasn't damage control. It sounded like relief. Naturally, the biggest shock came from what he didn't say. There was no mention of Shen Yue. For years, their on-screen chemistry had blurred lines. Every reunion, every shared glance, every behind-the-scenes moment fueled speculation that their bond went beyond friendship. Fans weren't just shipping a couple, they were protecting a dream. And now, that dream was being challenged by reality. But instead of disappointment, something unexpected happened. Many fans noticed how careful Dylan was with his words. He didn't overshare. He didn't sensationalize his relationship. He simply stated that the person he was dating understood his world, respected his work, and valued privacy as much as he did. That alone changed the narrative. This wasn't a scandal. It was a boundary. Industry insiders soon added context. Dylan, they said, had made a conscious decision over the past 2 years to separate his public image from his personal life. While his career soared, his inner circle became smaller. Fewer appearances, fewer leaks, fewer accidental sightings. The silence wasn't secrecy, it was protection. As for Shen Yue, sources close to both actors emphasized the same thing fans were slowly beginning to accept: deep friendship, mutual respect, and a shared history that didn't require romance to be meaningful. Sometimes chemistry is trust. Sometimes it's comfort. And sometimes it's simply two people who grew up in the same storm and came out stronger. Still, the shock lingered. Not because Dylan had a girlfriend, but because he finally allowed himself to be honest about it. In a world where celebrity relationships are often treated as public property, Dylan Wang did something rare. He revealed just enough to tell the truth, and just little enough to keep what mattered safe. And in doing so, he reminded fans that behind every perfect image is a real person choosing when and how to be seen. The truth didn't break the fandom. It matured it. As the hours passed, the conversation around Dylan Wang didn't die down. It evolved. What began as shock slowly turned into reflection. Longtime fans started revisiting old interviews, old fan meetings, old moments that once felt playful or evasive. Now, in hindsight, they felt intentional. Dylan had always been careful, not because he was hiding something scandalous, but because he was protecting something fragile. His silence, it seemed, was never about mystery. It was about respect. Online, two very different reactions emerged. On one side were fans who needed time. For them, the idea of Dylan having a real-life girlfriend felt like the end of an era. Not because they felt betrayed, but because they had emotionally grown alongside him. Watching him fall in love, off-screen, out of reach, was a reminder that their favorite actor was moving into a new chapter of adulthood. On the other side were fans who felt oddly relieved. They pointed out how different Dylan looked during the interview. Calmer, grounded, less guarded. There was no tension in his shoulders, no forced humor. Just quiet confidence. To them, this wasn't a loss, it was growth. As discussions deepened, attention returned to Shen Yue. Instead of denial or awkward distance, she continued her schedule as usual. No vague posts, No dramatic quotes. No indirect messages. Her silence spoke volumes. Industry insiders noted that this kind of calm reaction only comes from clarity when there is nothing to explain and nothing to hide. In fact, those close to both actors revealed that Dylan and Shen Yue had talked long before the interview aired. There was no surprise, no misunderstanding. Whatever bond they shared had already settled into something steady and unshakable. Friendship in its most honest form. Meanwhile, rumors about Dylan's girlfriend began circulating, but none were confirmed. And that, too, felt deliberate. Fans noticed that no paparazzi photos suddenly appeared. No exclusive leaks followed. It was as if an invisible line had been drawn and respected. That was when many realized something important. This wasn't a reveal meant to spark headlines. It was a quiet reset. By choosing honesty without spectacle, Dylan shifted the power back to himself. He didn't let gossip define the story. He didn't allow speculation to spiral. He gave just enough truth to close one chapter, while firmly locking the door to the next. And in doing so, he redefined his relationship with the public. Fans were no longer just observers of a fantasy. They were witnesses to a real person setting boundaries, choosing love on his own terms, and trusting that those who truly supported him would understand. As night fell and the conversation slowed, one sentiment rose above the rest. Dylan Wang didn't disappoint his fans. He trusted them. And that trust, more than any romance rumor, marked the most powerful transformation of his career so far. The next morning, the atmosphere felt different. What usually would have turned into days of chaotic speculation instead softened into something quieter, more thoughtful. Fan edits appeared, not of heartbreak, but of growth. Clips of Dylan smiling during recent interviews. Moments where his confidence seemed more grounded than ever. Quotes resurfaced where he once said he wanted to be someone who lives honestly, not loudly. For many, that line now felt like a prophecy. Industry insiders began weighing in, not about the girlfriend, but about Dylan's career direction. Producers noted that actors who reach the stage, where they no longer need to rely on mystery or fan service, often enter their strongest creative era. And Dylan, now standing firmly in his late 20s, seemed to be right there. He wasn't chasing an image anymore. He was building a legacy. Shen Yue's name, meanwhile, kept trending, but not for the reasons people expected. Instead of shipping wars, fans praised her composure. Comments flooded her latest appearance, calling her graceful, secure, and classy. Some even said this moment proved why she had lasted so long in an industry that often punishes women for rumors they didn't create. What became clear was this: whatever Dylan and Shen Yue shared in the past had already transformed into mutual respect. And respect doesn't break under pressure. As days passed, Dylan returned to work. New schedules, new scripts, new endorsements. But something subtle had changed in how he carried himself. He smiled less for cameras, but when he did, it felt real. Less practiced, less defensive. Fans noticed. They began saying he looked lighter, as if telling the truth had removed a weight he'd been carrying for years. Still, questions remained. Not about who his girlfriend was, but about what this meant moving forward. Would he become more private, more selective, more distant? If anything, the opposite happened. Dylan started engaging more thoughtfully. Shorter interviews, but deeper answers. Fewer appearances, but more intentional ones. He wasn't disappearing, he was refining. And in that refinement, fans found something unexpected. A new kind of connection. Not built on illusion or availability, but on trust. On understanding that admiration doesn't require possession. That supporting someone sometimes means letting them live fully, even when that life no longer fits a fantasy. By the end of the week, the headlines had moved on. But the impact hadn't. Because this wasn't just about Dylan Wang revealing a girlfriend. It was about a generation of fans growing with him, learning that love, honesty, and boundaries don't end devotion. They deepen it. And as Dylan stepped into this next chapter, steadier, quieter, more himself, one thing became certain. This wasn't the end of his story. It was the moment it finally became real. What happened next was something no one could have predicted. Instead of fading into silence, Dylan chose clarity. A week after the revelation, He appeared at a low-key brand event, no grand speech, no dramatic setup. But when a reporter carefully asked how he was handling everything, Dylan paused. Just long enough for the room to go quiet. Then he smiled. He said he was grateful. Grateful for fans who stayed, grateful for those who were honest about their disappointment, and grateful that he no longer had to split himself into a public version and a private one. He didn't mention names. He didn't explain timelines. He simply said that the people in his life deserve peace. That single sentence traveled faster than any rumor ever had. Social media shifted again. This time, not in shock, but in reflection. Fans began reposting it with captions about boundaries, maturity, and growing up alongside the idols they once only dreamed about. Many admitted this was the first time they felt treated not as consumers, but as people. Meanwhile, behind the scenes, casting news started to leak. A serious, character-driven project. No romance focus. No idol framing. Just a story that demanded restraint, vulnerability, and depth. Insiders whispered that directors had been waiting for this exact moment when Dylan could step into roles shaped by life experience rather than image. And Shen Yue. She didn't speak directly, but she didn't need to. At her next public appearance, she wore a calm confidence that fans couldn't stop talking about. When asked about old partnerships, she answered with a gentle laugh, saying some chapters are beautiful because they end exactly when they should. Nothing bitter. Nothing hidden. Just truth. The fandom, once divided by theories and expectations, began to settle. Longtime supporters stayed. Casual fans returned. New audiences, drawn by his honesty rather than mystery, started paying attention. This was no longer about who Dylan loved. It was about who he had become. An actor choosing substance over safety. A man choosing honesty over performance. A public figure refusing to let fear dictate his life. And perhaps most importantly, a reminder that growing up doesn't mean losing fans. It means finding the ones who are willing to grow with you. As cameras flashed and schedules filled, Dylan walked forward without looking back. Not because the past didn't matter, but because for the first time, his future wasn't being edited by anyone else. And in that quiet confidence, a new era had already begun.